Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of the series where I'm just kind of testing out NavMesh with MLAgents. This time I wanted to go through a dynamic NavMesh. I continued building off of the previous one that we had, so I duplicated it and adjusted some things. So if I come in here to prefabs, we see we have the norm nav mesh, which, because I have everything hidden. So have this one stored away as a prefab. I'll store the other one away as well. The changes that I've mostly done, I'll walk through. What I changed was mainly script and the environment, as you can see. If you haven't checked out the previous videos on the channel and you want to start working with MLAgents, I'd recommend checking out the Pellet Grabber series. The very first episode goes through setting up MLAgents the same exact way I have it set up here on my end. And then if you wanted to see NavMesh, well, you're at this series right now where I'm kind of messing around with NavMesh. And then I've also messed around with it a little bit in the Zombie Shooter series. I'll have both series linked down below in the description. But if you wanted to check them out, different kind of agents, actually walking through building a project. Whereas here, I'm more of just showing kind of what I've messed around with and what I've found. Yeah, with that, I'll jump into the differences that I've done. Let's go ahead and delete these. We don't need them. In fact, I'll make this a prefab. So that way we have the prefab. I will put everything up on the GitHub. I'm going to try to anyway, see if I can get that going. If I do, probably have I'll have it in the description of this video. And I will probably have a video out on how to do that. One, just so I can reference it in the future. So I don't have to keep notes of it. I'll be like, oh, let me just pull up the video and I can look. Because that's what I do with the Pellet Grabber series. Or with the NavMesh, I went and I looked at the Zombie Shooter one to see, like, how did I set up NavMesh again? Because it's been a while. And so I'll probably have a video for that. I can see here my Xbox controller disconnected. But for the terrain. So the terrain, you can see I kept it, I believe it's the same size. I went and I moved down to just one spawn point. So if we take a look, spawn points, I just have the one here. And then I have one target, which we already had before. I changed how it spawned. So I've been messing with different degrees of distance. I had some out here, didn't seem to really be getting anywhere. I moved them closer, still wasn't getting anywhere. Moved them to where they would spawn like here, here, and here. Still didn't get anywhere. It wasn't finding them. And it's my first time really training without using the ray perception sensors. So I went and I added those in. If we look at the agent, you can see them right here. All these bars, it's the ray perception sensor 3D. I added that to the agent because I was like, maybe they give me a little boost. And it did. It actually got decently good. It would, well, not great. I think it needed more training, more incentive, but it would spin like it usually does and walk around backwards like it's been doing when I've trained. But then after it would spot it, maybe like the second or third time, it would just zoom. Like it was like a lightning bolt, just super fast. And so that was the only time I was really figuring out where things were. And then, once it got decently good at that, I moved it further away and it did terrible, and then it would get better. And then I'd add in the obstacle because I removed the obstacle for the training, so, just doing little steps. And as soon as I would add it in, the training went downhill. I don't think, I guess I'll say I don't think it's the most optimal way to have a dynamic NavMesh. But when I'm running it, because it's using the NavMesh in order to navigate, the agent is, and because it's updating constantly, it seems like when it's training, it stutters a lot. Like the Unity itself is running fine. Like I can move things if I wanted to move the target. In fact, let me go ahead. I'll just show you guys. Let's go here. We're going to the 9th one. That's how many different training sessions I've done, plus resuming. So I'll run this. We're running with the GPU. I'll go ahead and hit play. It's running at 5 times speed. Default is 20 times. So you guys can see it. Well, it looks like it's going really fast. It's kind of jittering around. My camera moves just fine. I can click on this. I can move it just fine. So it's just the agent reconciling with, I think, the NavMesh constantly updating from the movements. It's actually really hard to see here. If I select terrain, you can see it a little bit better. It's constantly updating the mesh. These lines here, they're moving with the platform as it moves. Now, if you want to see how smooth it can be, let me go ahead and we'll hide the moving wall. So the script is now disabled, and we'll run it. And you can see the difference in how it moves. So this is still going at the 5 times speed. Still jittery, but it's actually like moving around. You can see a big difference when you have, like the 10, 15 platforms up. But it's actually, moving around. Before he was just hanging out in that one spot. Now he's actually searching around, trying to find where he's going. Of course, right now I'm running a brand new navigation, or not navigation, brand new training. So it doesn't know anything. So it's trying to figure out. So it's doing pretty well for not knowing anything. It's not getting to the point, but it's doing pretty well. But so that's, for the most part, I think what I changed with the agent, at least in Unity. I added the perception sensor. We have a much bigger vector size. Maybe he's changing the stacked vectors. I didn't really mess with that at all. I did, if I open this up, the training file, I changed some of the hyperparameters. I increased the buffer size. I doubled it. Learning rate was 3. I changed it to 1. The hidden units, that actually stayed the same. I tripled the layer number. I had 1 layer. I went up to 3, so it's a bit more of a complex task potentially. So maybe that would help. It didn't seem like it. I think it's mainly down to just training and environments. Increase the step size by 1 magnitude. I think I just added a 0. So if you guys wanted to kind of copy my training, it should be in the GitHub repository, but you can see it here as well. Go ahead and close this. We'll go over to the script. I've changed a lot here, and because I was changing the same script when I put this up onto the GitHub, it's going to be this script. So if you guys want the old one, you'll have to look back and adjust it from there. There's not, I just added some things, maybe tweaked a little bit. Some of the new stuff, different spawn locations. I just, I moved them to move either closer or further. You can just change, if you want it closer, you could change it to like 0 would be in the middle, or -5 I think is about on par with the moving wall. I have multiple moving walls, because I was going to try it with multiple of them, and that was even worse on performance. In fact, let me go ahead and let's just see what that looks like. So if you want to resume training, you can do a -- resume. And is it ready? It's ready. But let's just see how it runs now. It's resuming training, so whatever it learned, which wouldn't be much. So you can see here, it basically is just sitting in one spot and rotating. If I go ahead and I get rid of these, all of a sudden it's moving around. So it's still jittery, but you can see there the effect it's having on performance. I think it's just performance. I'm not entirely sure why it affects it, other than that our observations are taking into account the NavMesh, which is updating a lot, which I think is probably the issue. You'll see that further down. I added in these booleans because I was trying to give, a reward incentive for getting closer, other than, just the distance of the path, since that didn't really seem to be working, that great. And last position, I was trying to get it to not stand still and give punishment if it was standing still, which usually isn't an issue. That didn't, I eventually removed this, or it's commented out, I should say. Down here, I set the booleans to true. when the episode begins. Initially, I didn't, and I was like, this doesn't seem to be helping at all, or it's not changing the score at all. And yet it's because, once they were set to false, they just stayed false. Everything else should be the same here. Spawn agent and spawn target, I didn't change. Collecting observations, there's a lot now. I added the velocity and the forward direction, so hopefully it would be aware of both of those directions and inputs, and maybe utilize them a bit more to know where it's going. It seemed like it just really liked to go backwards for some reason. I don't know why. That was like its favorite mode of transportation, was running backwards. I don't know why, but yeah, that's what it decided on. Most of the times when I was training it and leaving it for several hours, I would look and he would just be running around backwards. I'm like, you can't see what's in front of you, dude. Target location, that's the same. Relative position, I wasn't sure if this would really do much, but I thought I would try. It's a target's position minus its own position, which I do actually have position and not local position, so maybe that was messing it up a little bit. I don't know if it would make that much of a difference, but I should have used local position here. Target position. Oh, and again, I'm using positions versus local positions. These should probably be all local positions. Maybe I'll run it after I finish recording this, and if there is a difference, I will add on to this. If there isn't, then if I don't add anything on, then I didn't see much of a difference here. But I grabbed the angle to the target, hoping that it would, maybe aim more towards where it was going, which it might have been actually, because when I think about it, once I at least added on the ray perception sensor, how I was saying it would beam to it after seeing it a few times. Maybe it was getting the angles and figuring out, how to go there. And then I added in, because we have the path being calculated and we get the distance, I added just, the path itself as well. I figured I'm just going to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. See, hey, maybe if I just give it all of the information I can, then it'll sort it out. Might be a little overloaded. This might actually be why it was struggling. Let's actually go ahead and test that. Let's test it right now. We'll do a couple little live tests. So we'll resume this training. While that gets ready, in the action received, I tried a bunch of different rewards. I tried doing punishments, and I tried adding in rewards for getting close. So if it was within 8 units, 4 units, and 2 units, that's where those booleans came in, then I would give rewards. It just racked up super high rewards, and that's why I had to throw in the booleans, because it was like, hey, I got 30,000 points. And I'm like, cool, that means that anything less is meaningless to you. Oh, oops, I accidentally have 3. It'll okay, yeah, no, it's still, oh, oops, fewer observations because we removed that one. Well, that's fine, it's been padded. But yeah, it doesn't seem like that made a meaningful difference. But yeah, I tried doing punishments and rewards, left them in here, so then if you guys want to try messing around with it, you're more than welcome to. I didn't change anything in heuristics on trigger enter or on the distance stuff and the drawing of the line. Didn't change any of that. So this is all I changed with the nav controller. Nav agent, or the ML nav agent controller. On the nav agent controller, basically the same changes. I have the vector 3. This one was really easy to do. The distance for this guy, which, let me see, this is at 5, 10, 10, -6. We'll run this to see. Let me go ahead and maybe change this to -10. So it's a bit further away and we can see the real difference here. We have the destination set for the position. I don't have local position here. Maybe I should, but we don't because I'm not doing any training with this one, I don't duplicate the environment, so I don't really have to worry about local position. There's only one environment. The target, I was having some issues initially getting it was spawning in areas it shouldn't be in. I realized it's because I had a serial, for some reason I had it serialized here, so that way we could see the locations, but it was letting me update it in the editor, and it was overriding whatever I had here, but only half overriding. It was like overriding it but also mixing with it. It was really weird. I removed that, so now I'm not overriding it, and it's good to go. So you don't actually need all of these. I'll leave them in there in case you guys want to mess with anything and you want these debugs. There's the update path, get path distance, and the gizmo. Wasn't much that was changed in here, but let's just see the difference with a actual, just normal NavMesh navigation versus the agent trying to learn with a dynamic setup. So it should spawn in the same area. Let me see. Oh, the spawn location. So I had 3 spawn locations to start with here. That is not what I want. We just want 1 spawn location. We could throw in the other ones, but I'll leave it as it is. Hopefully I'm not missing anything else that I've changed, and we'll find out if it has an error. It doesn't, and look at that. It sees it, it stops. Actually, oh, there is something that I'm missing here, because it's just running straight through them. If we look at the NavAgent, is it in here? Right now it's using the obstacle avoidance, and it's just running straight into them. I know there's a change here. I think I'm forgetting. Is it in terrain? I might need to go find it real quick and pause. There is something I believe let me try it one more time. I think I'm missing something, or I'm forgetting something that I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to point out the difference. Yeah, I will be right back, and I'll see if I can figure out what it was. Okay, I think I figured out the one thing I was missing was with the moving walls. I accidentally added in these 2, but I had already removed like these. I needed to add it back and then update it, so they didn't have all of the information that they needed, because they're all running off of the same script, and it's picking each one. So I needed to have each one in here, which I do have the same order. I do with the NavAgent. So let's say I went and I slowed it down. Let's slow it down a little more. And actually, I do want to change, because actually, is it in this one for the distance that they move? It is. I originally had it at 5, and it should stay within the bounds at 6. These outside edge ones were moving, because this middle one is like, yeah, it could move further. Go ahead and look at this, and we'll be able to see the line that's being drawn update as these kind of move through, and it wants to move around. Let me select the agent. He is acting weird now. He was acting just fine. In all my testing, he was doing fine, unless I broke something. You can see the line updating a little bit. I think, maybe because it's how slow it's going. Oh, it's because it's getting shoved. That might be an issue. I hadn't experienced it. Let me move this back up to the speed I had it at before. Maybe it was just going so fast before it wasn't really an issue. I'm getting... Yeah, see, I don't really notice the issue there. Huh. That's not something that I had run into before. We're running into live little bugs here. Well, kind of live. Live for me. Not so much live for you guys. But that is an interesting little bug. So if I run it slow and I get shoved, he kind of just gets shoved into the corner and gets confused. And I think right now he doesn't even quite have an active path. So it loses the path. I know it has that path going, but... Oh, you know what? I think he's getting pushed out. No? Yeah, I don't know. He's just constantly getting moved. That's interesting. But what I was wanting to show was with the terrain, no, with the moving walls, to make it a dynamic one, you add in NavMesh obstacle, and then you can carve. Oops. And so then you can see here, I have this cube set up. I made a cube and then I changed the size of what I wanted, added the NavMesh obstacle, keep it as a box, and default values for shape and center. You can change this if you want. I'm going to leave it the same, and then you hit carve and it carves out around, and then this will be checked by default. You're moving them, so you don't want that checked. It's not very efficient because it's constantly updating as it moves through, which eats up a good amount of resources, which I think it could potentially be one of the issues with training it, is it constantly moving. But move threshold, I want to adjust for the NavAgent. We can change the obstacle avoidance, which is if we change the radius, let's avoid it by that much. And let's just see what happened here. I'm just curious. I haven't messed with this much. I want to see. When it goes to avoid, sees the obstacles. Oh, it is kind of slow, so it can't really react. Oh, but it is just moving still. There you go. Let's make him faster so he actually stands a chance. Put it back to 5. And now run. But so he'll try to avoid things from within his own little bubble. They move really fast for him to react. Oh, and then I think he's avoiding it here. Let's do this. Just see. Yeah. He's avoiding, and I think he's getting, oh, that has NavMesh right there. The body's getting knocked off of the NavMesh through this movement. So there's a lot of bugs with this. But the main thing I wanted to do here was just to mess with the MLAgents with the NavMesh, not necessarily create, something for it to solve, but just see how they interact, which I think it's kind of interesting. I don't think they really mesh that well together. I haven't seen a benefit from what I've done anyways with what I have used MLAgents for. Like if I were to do the pellet grabber, yeah, I could use it to train to not walk off the side, and I don't have to have the kill walls. But it was interesting to see how it reacted with the kill walls. It would be like, oh, hey, I could, save my score by using the kill walls instead of getting caught by the hunter or by running out of time. Or with the zombie one, I don't think I used kill walls for. I think I started with that and then I was removing punishments. But it has been interesting to see that it does still follow, it respects the boundaries set by the NavMesh, but it doesn't seem to really use the information of the NavMesh for finding its goals. I don't know if someone had asked me about NavMesh and MLAgents. I don't have the comment up, but I know I will have gotten a screenshot and flashed it up onto the screen, at least in the first video. I don't know if I really answered that question. It seems like it would have a specific use case, I think. Like if you had maybe just a normal NavMesh agent and you used MLAgents, like the reinforcement learning and the neural network to just determine areas for it to go, to basically click and say, like, I want you to go here. I want you to go there. I think it would work fairly well that way. Basically, it acts as the player at that point and navigating its own little, basic AI to, move around the map. But in the use case that I'm trying here, I don't think it really works that well. I might be missing something. If I am, you guys are more than welcome to let me know down below. More than welcome to try this out yourself. And I kind of just been rambling for 25 minutes on something that, I could have just shown you how to make the dynamic nav mesh in, a couple of minutes. But I hope that you guys found this interesting to see. I don't know, I feel like it's very different than what I've done in the past, and I feel like I'm more of just saying, look, I didn't make it work, than I am showing you guys how to do something. But I'm hoping that you guys found it interesting regardless, and that you enjoyed, and that, you'll join me in the next series. I'm thinking for the next one, I have some servos that I've had sitting around for a while, and I want to get more into CAD design. Actually, I think the D in CAD is design, so CAD, like ATM machine. And so I'm thinking something, involving those. So I'll probably, the next few videos that'll go up will just be kind of implementing little bits and pieces there, so then I can keep track of everything and be like, hey, this is how I, get the servos working. Hey, this is, the body design or something like that. I'm just rambling on more, but yeah, I hope to, see you guys in the future stuff. See ya. Hey guys, just tacking on here at the end. I was doing some testing, so I was just curious about, why it gets stuck. If I resume here, it's just stuck, and I was thinking maybe it can't calculate a path, even though we have the line here. But oh, maybe now it can't. Hold on, let me get those showing and these showing. No, okay, it is still, it shows that it can calculate. I wish it would keep this updated. I want to see the most recent. Okay, well, regardless, it's doing this, but it seems like it loses track of the target whenever these paths go in front, which makes sense. It would then need to recalculate, but it's not recalculating. And I didn't have the issue before, although it seems to also only happen in this one corner. I don't have the issue in the middle or on the right side, which is also interesting. Like, here's the right side, and it gets shoved, but it's just fine. So I don't know if I broke something when I was trying to set up the agent itself, because I hadn't encountered this issue when I first made it. It's a very interesting little bug here. I was just exploring it a little bit. I might explore it more on my own, and maybe I'll probably not add something into the video, but maybe in the description. Or if you guys are interested in checking it out and seeing if you can figure it out, or if you've seen this before, maybe you guys have experience with NavMesh. I'm sure a lot of you have more experience than I do with it. I'd be interested in hearing what you guys, what your thoughts are on it. Yeah, I just wanted to add that in. I went, and it'll be in the code, but I just added this in from our nav. We had it commented out here. I just added it in here to see, and there's other comments and stuff that I'm sure that are buried in here that I don't have in the NavAgent controller, which can be easily added. Yeah, I just wanted to add that little tidbit